And here's our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight, coming to you live on CGTN from Beijing. We begin today's program in Hong Kong, where Hong Kong Chief Executive Carrie Lam delivered this year's policy address. Meanwhile, China has slammed the U.S. House of Representatives, which unanimously passed the 3 bills related to Hong Kong. How do we make heads or tails of the latest situation? Before our discussion, take a look at this.
Chaos and troubles ensuing in Hong Kong. Chief Executive Carrie Lam tried to deliver her third policy address on Wednesday morning, but she was interrupted twice by opposition lawmakers. The speech finally came in a pre-recorded video.
Many sectors of our society have condemned the radical acts of rioters and supported the government to strictly enforce the law to end violence. Various sectors have appealed to people with different political views to put aside differences, stop violence as soon as possible, and restore calm in society.
Ms. Lam said her government would drastically raise the number of housing projects and accelerate the sale of public housing units. Anger, especially among young people over sky-high property prices, is widely believed to be a factor behind the protests that have rocked the city for months. The policy speech was released just hours after protesters won a show of support from the U.S. House of Representatives, which is trying to meddle in China's internal affairs by passing bills related to Hong Kong. China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has repeatedly condemned the U.S. legislation.
We strongly oppose the U.S. Congress's decision on passing the so-called Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. We responded to the issue this morning, and here I'd like to reiterate that in response to the wrong decision the U.S. has made and its damage to China's interests, we'll take powerful countermeasures to firmly safeguard the security of our sovereignty and our interests.
A spokesman from the Hong Kong SAR government said the region has enjoyed sufficient autonomous status under the protection of the Basic Law and other regulations, and foreign lawmakers should not interfere with Hong Kong affairs in any form. Businesses have already suffered from months of protests, most of the time with violent activities. The chaos has created fears and uncertainty for investors and tainted Hong Kong's business-friendly reputation.
For more about the latest situation in Hong Kong, particularly all the latest from today following the policy address, we are joined in Hong Kong by Ronald Wan, who is the Chief Executive Partners Capital International, and also in Hong Kong, Lawrence Ma, barrister and chairman of Hong Kong Legal Exchange Foundation. Meanwhile, we would also like to welcome on the phone with us Annie Wu Suking, who is a former member of the Hong Kong Basic Law Consultative Committee. I want to start by asking Annie, Ms. Wu, welcome to the program. What do you make of the content of this policy address? Briefly from you first, before I go to the other two gentlemen.
Okay, I actually also attended the briefing by the Chief Secretary for Administration afterwards. And I personally think this time the Chief Executive report is very progressive and very direct and focused. It's not like the two previous reports that has to be too long-winded, because I think a Chief Executive is addressing the most important issue on housing, and then also she is looking at the point of trying to get the land supply, because if you have a housing policy, if you don't have the land supply, it's also going to be not going to be effective. So this is a very open-minded and very strict to the point to look at the issues that had actually been affected Hong Kong for the last 20 years.
Okay, Ms. Wu, of course, you have seen the chaos in the room when she was trying to deliver the policy address almost twice. But what do you make of what's going on in the room when she was trying to give this policy address vis-a-vis the realities on the streets and also the mindset now of most of the Hong Kongers?
Today the Chief Executive was actually interrupted twice. So finally she did the video address in the government house. I think this is much better because then everyone can watch from the TV, and also she can explain things very explicitly. And as we understand, certain what we call pan-Democrats members, they really want to disturb and also to really prevent the whole address by the chief executive. So I don't think this is a really wise thing to do, and also this is really trying to be very disturbing to the address by the chief executive.
I see.
So also the people on the street, they really like to listen to what the chief executive is going to address and going to go forward. And most of the majority of the friends I have and the people are getting very tired and sick of all those unrest and protests. And they want to see Hong Kong going back on the mainstream.
We'll see what is the latest development in Hong Kong. And of course, we're also joined by Lawrence Ma and Ronald Wan. Gentlemen, I also want to address the similar question to both of you. What do you make of the starting point that the chief executive of Hong Kong has chosen in the policy address after 4 months of chaos in Hong Kong to address the real estate market and provide people with much lower starting point when it comes to cash in order to get a house? Mr. Ma.
Yes, this is very encouraging, which is one of the key points or key points of attraction in her policy address today. As you understand that Hong Kong property prices are high and people cannot afford to buy a house. Now, the worst thing is the bank is not going to lend us a mortgage more than 50%. After SARS, so everybody. So, for example, a flat in Hong Kong would cost $10 million. You got to save up to about 5 million Hong Kong dollars and to borrow another half from the bank. Now that's the case before the policy address, but now it has been reduced. You can borrow up to 90%. A bank loan, and then you only have to pay 10% as a deposit to buy a flat, which is very encouraging.
Mr. Ma, of course, I understand there are various kinds of debates going on in Hong Kong. To reflect part of that, Mr. Wan, some argue whether it is a property issue, it is more than property issue, or it's a totally different nature when it comes to issues now up for debate in Hong Kong, or for a starting point to give a policy address. Your thoughts?
Yes, I think the chief executive, the government has tackled the livelihood issue of society directly. Some of the policy regarding the housing market has been kind of surprised the market a little bit, as Mr. Ma has mentioned about the mortgage, the control has relieved, and basically it surprised a lot of people as well. Of course, the conflict and the situation in Hong Kong was created by many combination of factors. I think livelihood of the people, particularly regarding the young people, is one of the key concerns. I think it is the right step, for the government and chief executive to tackle the issue directly, not just on housing, on education, on many aspects of society, and also on education as well.
Right.
I think as long as we tackle the issue directly, I think things will be better in future.
Well, as you may know, Mr. Wan, as someone who is running in the business world, it's very important for the Hong Kong government to be able to maintain a certain level of income in order to be supportive of many of the causes we mentioned earlier. And at the same time, it is also the nature of Hong Kong to be relevant in the international market when it's maintaining certain kinds of trade status and also special status when it comes to international interactions in business world. So, Mr. Wan, given the current circumstances, do you think Hong Kong is getting a starting point when it comes to property market, or Hong Kong has to work on many things all at the same time in order to push forward even some of the livelihood issues within Hong Kong? Mr. Wan, briefly.
Yes, I think so, because the positioning of Hong Kong is very clear. Under one country, two system, Hong Kong is the international financial center of China, and also it's connected to the world as well. So people in Hong Kong has to be clear about its special status, under one country, two system. This is how we get our competitive edge, over other cities in the regions. So basically, I think the infrastructure and the concept and the mindset of the people need to be set straight, about this. We need to have a harmony society. At the same time, we need to work with our country, which is mainland China, basically to clear all the misunderstanding and situation, to create a synergy impact for the business world and for the businessmen, for them to have a better livelihood and make money, and also to create a better future for both the city itself and for the country and even for the world. So I think this is very clear, I think, which we need to tackle on directly.
But Mr. Ma, of course, given the latest situation in Hong Kong with violence, as we have seen in news around the world, how business world will still maintain confidence in even the near future of Hong Kong, not to mention long term, that is a big question, I guess. So it's interesting that some makes the argument in the name of Hong Kong's future and without paying attention even to the near term of Hong Kong's future. Mr. Ma, how would you reconcile these quite contradictory rhetorics and logics?
Well, I think in the past few months, Hong Kong has faced an economic downturn, close to sort of a quasi-recession. Many of the restaurants have closed down, and people lost employment. And the ripple effect is yet to be seen, because there are predictions from the business world that this is not the worst time. The worst time will be mid next year, 2020, where people have lost their job, they lost their savings, they cannot survive they have used up all their savings, and they start to probably sell their properties, and property market will go down. So all this will have a ripple effect, and we still yet to see what is the worst still to come next year.
Ms. Wu, I hope you are still with us on the phone. Annie, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Wonderful. Would you help us to understand, how, with the violence going on in Hong Kong, would people still have confidence in Hong Kong's economy? And apparently, there is so much anger and so much hatred. And I read a lot of societal divide. Just look at the pictures that you see in the news around the world in Hong Kong. So is the Hong Kong we know really matching up with the realities of Hong Kong? Annie, would you help us to understand the latest situation and also understand you were targeted by some of those with extreme hatred against whoever want to come out and speak a different opinion. Personally, how do you feel it? And as someone responsible for Hong Kong, from your own perspective, how do you see its immediate future?
Well, I would use the word quite pessimistic. You know why? I'm trying to tell you actually what has happened in the last 3 months. And I notice a lot of young people have a kind of a blind faith that they're trying to save Hong Kong by destroying like the MTR stations and also hitting stores and companies that are supposed to be very much supporting the chief executive, supporting Hong Kong. And right now it's supposed to not so violent, but now they're becoming very scattered around. And it's going to be having a lot of stress on I'll say our police force. I don't think all the violence will calm down in the next month or so, and I really hope they could calm down. But I feel the young people have been really being utilized by other unknown forces, and behind the scene there are certain kind of forces that they want to really attack the Hong Kong government, and also try to use Hong Kong as a battleground to create a lot of political unrest. So even though the chief executive is trying her best to settle the basic problems of Hong Kong, I think the undercurrent, all the problems are not yet going to be settled down.
Now, we understand, Annie, today the U.S. House of Representatives issued a certain kinds of statement or so-called bill regarding Hong Kong. China's Foreign Affairs Office, of course, have already spoken out against it and suggesting it is meddling in China's internal affairs, is trying to destroy the prosperity and the stability of Hong Kong in order to undermine China's development. Now, there is a logic in the statement because Hong Kong has been serving as a window for China for quite some time, and it is also a place where foreign investment are coming into China in big ways. So how do you see the others, quote unquote, role in what's going on in Hong Kong? Will that clear up the picture or further complicate the picture and even bring Hong Kong further to chaos? Your personal opinion, Annie?
My personal view is Hong Kong now is part of the Greater Bay Area. And even though the U.S. government is, the Congress, and they're trying to introduce the bill, if from the angle of a person working in Hong Kong, we should really get ourselves more adhered to the development of the Greater Bay Area and to provide our access to enhance more business development, put Hong Kong into the Greater Bay Area in Shenzhen. I think this is our usefulness in future. And in the old days, Hong Kong has been a kind of an entry port to be the window for bringing investment direct into mainland China. But I think nowadays it's very important that we try to immerse ourselves as part of the Greater Bay Area.
I see.
Of course, this will affect us from the U.S. passed the bill. But on the other hand, I think Hong Kong, we have to transform ourselves and look at the new role of Hong Kong in the new era.
I see. Mr. Wan, I want to go to you and Mr. Ma as well about that. So Hong Kong, its status, particularly in terms of business and economics, very important for foreign investors and for China as well. If things like this continue, what would that mean for foreign investments coming in and out of China? Who want to see, you see people from both sides want to seek opportunities through a wonderful area of Hong Kong. So what would that mean, Mr. Van, from your perspective? Then I would move to Mr. Ma.
Yes, Hong Kong is a global hub, for business and for finance. It is also the international financial center of China. I think Hong Kong people and Hong Kong government need to reassure the world that Hong Kong is a safe place. Hong Kong is a dynamic place. Hong Kong is a place with future. So that they can come here and do business safely and also to make money as well. And also through this process can achieve many goals as well. But you need to bear in mind that Hong Kong is one of the financial centers. Is the most important international financial center of China, but China also has other international centers like Shenzhen and Shanghai. So Hong Kong needs to improve itself and works better. Yes, this is how I think about the situation.
Mr. Ma, of course, the chief executive and the office, her office in Hong Kong would love to do what Mr. Wan earlier said to reassure the international community, but the realities on the streets are not necessarily go in that logic. So, Mr. Ma, here's the thing. When you see the governance of Hong Kong since the return to China under one country, two system, there have been various kinds of challenges and opportunities through different offices of the chief executive. So how would you see the challenges that the current chief executive and her office is facing right now vis-a-vis the earlier generations? And how much, realistically, should we expect this chief executive and her office working together with the mainland and all factors in Hong Kong be able to achieve, Mr. Ma?
Well, of course, the problem is being the current administration, particularly Mrs. Lam, she was brought up as a bureaucrat. She may not have too much experience or superior sense, I would say, with geopolitics. She was an expert in managing Hong Kong, but she has not probably, when she was introducing this Fugitive Amendment Ordinance, has not taken into account the China-America trade war, as well as Taiwan's political situation. So now it seems that Hong Kong has been utilized as a scapegoat for the one country, two system, so that Taiwan will not further endorse it or support it if it is to be implemented in Taiwan. So this is some of the problems that we have to be aware of for the current administration. And she is doing well. She is doing very well. After she has tumbled into a trap, she has now get up, stand up, face the public, and give a very good policy address, and by providing good housing policies and good monetary policies to help people to buy houses and properties, which is very positive in my view.
Ms. Wu, Annie, if you're still with us, I want to ask you about that. What is the way forward? If we look at the rest of the year or next year for Hong Kong, for someone who is patriotic as you are, but also someone who loves Hong Kong as much as you do. Every time we do interview with you, the words you said about Hong Kong are already touching every heart, shall I say, when we are watching that interview. So would you help us to understand, what do you consider as the way out?
I think my personal observation is the way out, we have to instill back law and order in Hong Kong, because a lot of all these rioters and young protesters have been breaking the law, and then our police force have been trying their best, but they always have to be on the defensive. So it may be important that we should try to put Hong Kong back into law and order, that we can create confidence in the population, because a lot of the silent majority are very scared nowadays. And on Saturday and Sunday, they don't even dare to come out on the street. And this is not the Hong Kong that I've known for so many years. So, on the other hand, a lot of the foreign companies are not going to send their staff to work in Hong Kong if they know the place is not going to be safe for the staff. So I think aside from all the business that we can bring to other people or enhance foreign business to come to Hong Kong, if we don't put our own house in order, this is the most important and critical part. And I know our chief executive is trying her best. But it's not only the government and police force, it's actually up to everyone in Hong Kong to try to really support the government and support law and order, and not try to help out the protesters on the private sense. Even the churches, they are also supporting the protesters, which I would think is really ridiculous and nonsense.
Yeah. Thank you very much. What about the two of you, Mr. Wan and Mr. Ma, priorities the rest of the year and even the next? Mr. Ma?
Well, I think I agree with Annie, because restoring the rule of law is very important, because now you can see that people go and protest and they don't get punishment. The law is not working on them as yet. They're not simply scared. So restoring the rule of law to Hong Kong, and not just punishing people, but also make them be aware and concerned with the legal restraints we put on them. Now that's something Hong Kong has to restore in the next coming 10 years, I would say, to restore the law and order in Hong Kong.
Mr. Wan?
I think our society needs rationality. The whole society needs to calm down, bring the business back to normal, and so that people can do business, can make a good livelihood, and make everything better. You know, just take the past few months as a learning curve, you know, so that we can make our one country, two system better in future and for everyone. I think this is how the chief executive has tried to achieve, through a policy speech, and I think that we can make it together over a short period of time. Yes.
One country, two system. When they started the operation, it's very clear Hong Kong people governing Hong Kong. Now Hong Kong, of course, is in the hands of the people in Hong Kong, and it's really up to what the people in Hong Kong want and how hard they want to work for a good future for themselves and also for their relations with the mainland and for their status in the world for their future. Thank you so much for being with us, the three of you, Lawrence Ma, Ronald Wan, and Annie Wu Shuqing. Really appreciate it. Thank you.